In this video, we're going to be reviewing Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and showing you how to make a tall and powerful cocktail I've named the Conqueror. Today on the Martini Shot. Hello and welcome to the Martini Shot, home of movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails. My name is Brandon, and before we get into the movie review, let's bend time and space with a cocktail fit for Kang I've named the Conqueror. And hey, if you like movie reviews and cocktails, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to help support the channel. Kang is the next big bad of the MCU post-Thanos, so it's only fitting that the universe-trekking warmonger has a cocktail made in his image. This cocktail is designed in his likeness, so it's going to be borrowing from his color palette, so that means it's going to be a little bit purple, a little bit green, and just a little bit blue as well. We're going to be using a multitude of flavors, including melon and blackberry. It's a complex cocktail that's going to look striking if done correctly. Let's get into it. Go ahead and grab your shaker. We are gonna go ahead and start with the base spirit, which is going to be gin. We are gonna do 1.5 ounces. Next up is the ingredient that is going to give our cocktail the green tinge we're looking for, and that's going to be Midori melon liqueur. We're gonna do 1 ounce. Next, we're gonna add some tartness, courtesy of some lime juice. We are gonna do 3/4 ounce. And now to give the cocktail a little bit of variety, we're gonna be adding some floral notes, courtesy of some elderflower liqueur. You're gonna do 1/2 ounce. All right, let's get some ice in our shaker and shake to chill. All right, you're going to be straining this into a taller cocktail glass, preferably a Collins glass. But the first thing you're gonna wanna do before actually straining the drink in there is make that purple layer. Now for this, I used a combination of blackberry liqueur and blue curacao. The blue curacao is pretty much just for color. The blackberry liqueur is a bit on the red side, but adding just a little bit of blue curacao can shift it a little bit more over to the purple color that we're looking for. And the amount you use is up to you, but I would advise not using too much because it will kind of overpower the drink and you'll lose out on some of the flavors of the base cocktail. Add some ice to your glass and go ahead and strain. Now the final part of this drink is a little bit tricky to pull off, but if you can do it right, it makes it look very interesting. So we are actually going to be floating some sparkling water that has been tinted with some blue curacao. Now typically you wouldn't be able to float blue curacao on top of a drink, mainly just because the sugar content is very high. It makes it very dense and it'll just sink straight to the bottom of the glass. However, if we are cutting it with some sparkling water, it is going to give it the nice bubbly, airy nature that will allow it to float on top. And this is really more just for appearances, not really so much for taste, so you don't have to do this part. However, if you want to have the full complete Conqueror, you can definitely give it a try. All you're going to want to do is take some sparkling water, add just a few drops of blue curacao to get it to the color that you're looking for, and then using the back of a spoon, go ahead and gently layer it on top of the cocktail. And there you go, now you have the Conqueror. And just FYI, I do recommend drinking this with a straw just so it can allow you to get all the flavors of the base cocktail as well as that purple layer underneath. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. It's definitely boozy. Most of the ingredients in here are alcohol. You get a little bit of the melon, but it's not as overpowering as a normal Midori cocktail would usually tend to be. And I think a lot of that kind of comes down to not only the cutting of the sparkling water that we added on top, but also a little bit of that blackberry liqueur. It adds a little bit of sweetness to it, as well as some more variety when it comes to the fruit flavors that you find in this drink. The tartness of the lime comes through pretty nicely, making it nice and balanced. And it's actually a lot lighter than you may think. I do think the sparkling water helps out a lot there, and it's going to make the drink a lot more palatable, a lot more easy to drink. Now that we have our drink, let's jump straight into the review of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And Kevin Feige wept as there were no more worlds left to conquer. That's about where the MCU is at right now. It may be hard to imagine that there was once a time where Marvel and the MCU were considered the underdogs. Back when Marvel was struggling to stay afloat, selling out their characters to the highest bidder, the MCU was a huge gamble that soon set out to do what hadn't really been done before: create a huge, intertwined cinematic universe full of iconic characters and connected storylines. This mission saw them topping the box office again and again, while maintaining a chokehold on the pop culture zeitgeist. But that was years ago, and I don't think it's controversial to say that the MCU has been on a steady decline since Avengers Endgame, with a few decent showings here and there. Phase 4 of the MCU wasn't the best, so I was hoping Phase 5 would see the MCU acknowledge what didn't work beforehand and try something new and unique to put the Marvel Universe back on top. But Quantumania doesn't do that. In fact, it's probably my least favorite MCU film to date. It's just more of the same with very little innovation or engagement in the story, characters, or visuals. Everything feels incredibly lazy for a billion-dollar megacorporation. And if this is supposed to be indicative of the future of Phase 5, well, we might be in trouble. Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man, is living the good life after helping save the world from Thanos, even if it's a bit of a meandering life. His daughter Cassie pressures him into continuing to be a hero while also wanting to be one herself. Cassie's studying of the microscopic quantum realm inadvertently pulls her, Scott, and the Pym family into the realm, where they are forced to contend with a new, otherworldly landscape and an interdimensional despot looking to escape. I'm not really a huge fan of the Ant-Man movies, but I can admit they have some elements to them I like. The comedy is often pretty decent, and the films lend themselves to some cool sequences when it comes to size manipulation, making big things small, small things big, so on and so forth. Quantumania kind of abandons the style, both intentionally and unintentionally. Having the new film set in a whole new world definitely changes the backdrop for the character. I just don't really think it fits for this character. We get less of what makes Ant-Man unique, with this setting feeling more akin to something found in Guardians of the Galaxy, which doesn't always lend itself to interesting uses of Ant-Man's powers. This was definitely an intentional change, but what might not have been intentional is the change in the comedy, or lack thereof. This has got to be one of the least funny MCU films that actually is trying to be funny since Thor: Love and Thunder. I can think of one joke about holes that got a chuckle out of me, but man is the writing here just bottom of the barrel, even by MCU standards. This extends to the story and dialogue as well, which are riddled with cliches and generic lines and story beats that feel more like placeholders than final copies. There's a ton of telling over showing at play here, which is a bit annoying considering this is perhaps the most visually complex Ant-Man film to date. But like many of Marvel's other recent films, the visuals can be very hit or miss. A lot of thought and creativity obviously went into the designs of the environments and species found in the quantum realm, and artists should be commended for that. Yet I couldn't help but feel as though everything felt randomly thrown together at times. There's not a lot of consistency to the people and the creatures we come across, feeling like a hodgepodge of ideas that don't really make narrative sense. It's never addressed if all of the species we come across are from the quantum realm initially or not, and the world is sold as so unknown and difficult to access that I find it hard to believe multiple species could just migrate here a la Star Wars. Then there's the environments and backgrounds, which look nice and well crafted, but as soon as you stick an actor in front of it, it really starts to look wonky. It all looks just so staged, with the characters often having little presence in the world, looking cropped in with unsuitable lighting. Avatar: Way of Water has set the standard, and the MCU is struggling to keep up. Once again, begging Marvel to actually give their VFX teams time to work on these things. Let's talk characters and actors. Look, I love Paul Rudd just like any true American, but they're really giving him, and to an extent everyone else here, absolutely nothing to work with. Scott Lang's minor conflict with Cassie is inconsequential and doesn't lead to anything impactful or emotional. Evangeline Lilly's Hope Van Dyne, aka the Wasp, really seems to get shoved into the back this time around, which is nuts considering her name is also in the title. The same can be said for Michael Douglas's Hank Pym, though Michelle Pfeiffer's Janet Van Dyne does get a lot of play here, even if she's being fed some truly heinous surface-level dialogue. The film's two villains seem to be the most heavily discussed aspect of the film, so let's talk about them. MODOK, who is actually the villain from the first Ant-Man film, has been drawing a lot of comparisons to George Lopez in Shark Boy and Lava Girl. And yeah, it's not the best looking, but I truthfully didn't mind him. I think he gets some decent action sequences and one-liners, even if he's not completely accurate to how he is in the comics. I think he's fine. But the big bad of the film, and also the future of the MCU, is Kang, portrayed by Jonathan Majors. So, Kang is the aspect of this film that has been getting the most praise, and I totally get where some people are coming from. He's intimidating and has a certain gravitas to him, which certainly comes from the talent of Majors. But if we compare him to the last big bad, Thanos, he still has a ways to go if I'm going to be taking him remotely seriously. The character still feels so vague in his motivations and plans, never explicitly clear on what his endgame is. Sure, this could be saved for future films down the line, but it hinders him as a villain in the movie because we never really feel the impending doom a character like this should impose. Majors takes the character in a very galactic Shakespearean route, playing into his thespian inspirations. The problem with this is he doesn't have an actual poet behind him feeding him monologues or prose that fits the performance. He's good in the film, don't get me wrong, but he's certainly far from Thanos in both depth, complexity, and uniqueness. I hate to say it, but this may be a new low for the MCU. While these newer films have strayed from being absolutely offensive in their quality, their blandness is growing aggravating. I have a theory on this, circling back to what I said at the very beginning of the review. No more worlds left to conquer. They've topped the box office, dominated the pop culture zeitgeist, and created a new wave of cinema, for better or for worse. Back then, Marvel was fighting to build towards something that had never really been done before. They more or less succeeded, but now, what do they have to work towards? More money. That's it. Make as much money as they can with as little effort as possible. Pump out the most lazy, cliche-ridden scripts they can, spend half the budget on stars who probably wish they could be doing anything else by now, and stuff in as many references and winks to the source material and hope that will be enough to satisfy people. We could be at the end of an era here, and I hate to say it, but it's probably for the best. For my rating, I'm giving this film 1.5 ants out of 5. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Martini Shot. If you saw Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. And if you like what you saw here and would like to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me across all social media channels. Those links are down in the description below. And if you enjoy movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails, be sure to check out my website, martinishot.blog. Until next time, thank you again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Live deliciously, but please remember to drink responsibly. Thank you.